Okay,
Sorry.
so it's Sunday. I don't really usually release a recording on Sunday, so maybe this is for Monday. But I went to Korea Fest yesterday on Saturday, and I wanted to talk about some stuff, but I didn't want it to be a straight video of me railing on K-pop and K-pop fans and young fans. So I have a special guest on the phone to defend her fandom.
My fandom?
Yeah. Hello, Krista.
Oh,
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
It's good. I'm going to try to keep this video under 10 minutes, so we gotta talk fast.
Sh-
Yeah, so I went to Korea Fest, right? I was walking around. There's, it was kind of small, to be honest. The Houston, it was kind of small. It wasn't very, like, big. Big. I mean, I don't think these festivals are really huge. It looked a lot more, looked somewhat more professional than Japan Festival that I went to earlier this year in, like, March or May or whenever April. But the thing about it is there's definitely like a heavy K-pop influence at this event, right? It's like basically everything they're doing is like they have to like it's like to get people in the door, they have to like shove K-pop into everything so that people will be interested. Otherwise, it's like Korean drummers, Korean culturistic, old fashioned dancers, and then nobody gives a shit.
And that's what I was gonna say. It's like the clickbait of Korean
No,
festivals.
that's
You know,
terrible.
you go for the K-pop, but you
This is
stay for the drum. You're like,
well,
oh,
no,
this looks
no,
cool.
nobody stays for the drummers. It's they in between K-pop performances. There's like a drummers, and then like some people will just kind of like, well, I'll wait for the next K-pop performance. Like the biggest crowd I saw the entire. I mean, I was only there for like 5 hours.
Hmm.
The biggest crowd was this. It was the side stage, and then basically they had an MC. This girl's like, "All right, we're playing next up, next song," and they're playing snippets of songs, right? They're not even playing the whole song, right? They're just playing the most like the chorus or like
Recognizable.
and
Yeah.
then all of a sudden, Nakajima, and then everyone would go wow, and now the entire crowd would freak out, and it was just a bunch of K-pop girls all wearing their whatever group they support,
Right.
BTS
BTS,
or
Army, Blackpink,
yeah, and
whatever
then
they
they
call
would
it,
play it,
flag.
and then they would all and I couldn't see because it was such a big crowd, but they were all just like
Hmm.
jumping in around in the little. They just start jumping around in the little group pile, and then
Yeah.
like don't, and then they'd be like and then they would stop, and then like da 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 next song, and they play the next one, and and they all freak out again, and I was like, is this really good for Korea? Is this really good for like? Here's the thing. I know that I can be coming off as the biggest hypocrite because I'm a huge Idol fan, right? And at one point I considered myself a huge K-pop fan too. So I'm not trying to rail on these fans, like, but it wasn't like that when I was a fan. Number one, because we we weren't having K like people who were into idols or people who were into K-pop when I was into K-pop, they were just in it because they were in it. There was nothing else. There was no K-cons and Korean festivals, and it was me going to the Korean supermarket and then be like, can I rent this week's episode of Inkigayo, please? And then they give me like a VH fucking S. Here you go, and I'm like, thank you. And they, are you Korean? Are you Korean? I'm like, no, sorry, I'm Chinese, but I like this stuff. And I'd go home and I'd take the tape and I'd put it in and I'd watch the tape and then I'd return it in the week. Like
Right.
that was the extent of the fandom. Is that was it? There was
And it
there.
felt very uncommon. Like I'm too like if you saw Inkigayo
Yeah,
anywhere else, you would be like, "Oh my God, that's crazy!" Like I'm seeing this so far out of where I'd normally get it. Or if you saw other people that liked K-pop, it was so far out, you'd be like, "Oh my gosh, like this is so rare that other people like it,
but
and
you're
you could
talking about
only
the
get it at."
you're talking
Huh?
about like the mainstreamness of it.
Yeah, it was not very mainstream. So
Yeah, but I don't want to blame it on the mainstreamness because here's the thing. Here's where I'm understanding about the K-pop fandom is that there will always be that cycle, right? Because when you're 16, 17 years old, and this is going to sound very offensive to people probably, but when you're 16 and 17 years old, I'm sorry, you don't know shit. And it's not because your opinions are I I'm alluding to the fact that your opinions are bad,
Mhm.
but it's not your fault. Because when you're 16, 17, you haven't heard anything yet, right?
Yeah, you're
Like
just too
I
ignorant
remember
to
when
know.
I was 16 or 17, I thought every song that came on the radio, and this is pre-K-pop, but when I was 16 or 17, like everything that came on the radio, I thought was like the most amazing song. Like just every song that came out, I was like, "Oh my god, this is amazing. This exactly speaks to me. I know exactly what they're talking about." But I was like
Mm.
16. It's like, what the fuck did I know about life? What the fuck did I know about anything? You know, about romance, about love. I didn't know anything about that stuff. You know, like
Mhm.
songs now. When I hear about love, I'm like, dude, that song. Yes, I know exactly what it means. You know,
Yeah.
but like back then, I didn't know
But it's more
anything.
rare of an occasion when that actually happens. Like when you hear a song and you like completely relate to it, you're like, "Oh my
Yeah,
God."
but I mean,
Like I can feel it. But
back then I
every other
related
pop
to
song,
everything because I
yeah.
assumed I did, or like there were some songs I didn't. Like sleeping around didn't make sense to me. But anyways, so like when I see these kids freaking out at a K at Korea festival, right? I guess to K-pop, like I just understand. I it feels foreign to me, but I also do understand. Like, huh? Yeah, I remember when I was like that. And then the thing is, not only do I remember when I was like that, I've been through like multiple other iterations of that. You know, like when people were freaking about Big Bang, and I'm like, okay, everybody's freaking about Big Bang, great. You know, and I don't know what's the next, like Shiny or Beast or whatever next girl group or guy group. You know, because like there's the girl generation where everybody's freaking about girls generation, and then everyone was freaking out about 21 for a while, and then everybody was freaking about Twice now, and then Blackpink or what. There's like a million. It's a cycle, man. When I know people think uh what's it called? Why am I freaking out?
I don't
What's
know.
what's the group that's really popular right now? Why am I blanking on their name?
Moboland?
No, not the guy group that we were just talking
Oh,
about.
BTS. Jesus.
BTS. Why was I thinking of? I said Beast, and I was like thinking like B21, and I just couldn't.
B2.
BTS. I couldn't think about
Yeah,
that
they
number for
they
some
have
reason.
like a clothing brand that's
No,
called
I
something
know,
like
I know. I was in
B21
Korea. I was in Korea, and one of my
that was
cousins is a big
everywhere.
One of my Koreans is a big fan. One of my Koreans, one of my cousins was a big fan, and when I was in Korea, I bought her all the little stuffed animals and like a pair of
Uh-huh.
slippers or some shit, and brought
Yeah,
it
I
back to
went
her.
to their shop in New York City. They have a shop that's in
Great, wonderful. But I'm saying this group is the biggest thing right now because K-pop has reached its apex, right? Is because
hmm
there's with every iteration, and Super Junior, that's another group, but with every iteration there's more fans, right? Like HOT, they didn't sell that many albums, but that's not because they weren't good. It's not because their fans weren't passionate. It's because there literally were not that many fans, you know?
Someone's about to talk to me. Hold on.
Yes.
Sorry. Hey, sorry, I'm just waiting on them to tell me what to do. They don't have my product in. So I'm just waiting on dispatch to tell me what to do. Yeah, they need to call me. Yeah, but they didn't have the product. Is that right? Okay. All right. So, all right, cool. Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah, but what was I
Anyway,
what was I saying?
you were talking about every generation of K-pop and every
Yeah,
upcoming
it's
generation.
imagine same thing as like there's probably more people on the earth now than there was 10 years ago, right?
Hmm?
So when 10 years ago or 20 years ago when oh my god, it's 20 years ago. 20 years ago when HOT was putting out CDs, there just literally weren't as many people. So there's less people to buy CDs just on sheer numbers alone, right?
Yeah.
And
And
now
there
that
was probably less availability
yes,
because like
there's
now
no
you
internet,
get
there's no online
right.
ordering. Now the thing
YouTube
is
was the big
huge.
reason why Psy got popular. If he had not posted Gangnam Style on YouTube, nobody would have ever heard of it.
Gangnam Style.
Yeah,
But the
because it was
Psy
on
also,
YouTube.
that also got a lot of Korean. I don't know, man. I don't want to say. Can we talk about the young girl fans because that's kind of creepy to me. I know people like look at idol fans and look at old guys like in their 30s or 40s, and they're like, oh, look at these idol fans. Look at how old they are. They're creeping on these young singers, right? But like when
Yeah,
I see like these throngs of girls like going to Korean festival, dressed up in like kind of hoochie mama clothes, So they can
Yeah.
dance around to K-pop stuff. I don't want to. Sorry, I said disgusting earlier, or I said what? Creepy. It said
Pre- Yeah.
it's it's creepy to me because not because of like I don't want to like. Here's the thing: they're not. I don't want to let them off the hook completely, right? I don't want to say like, oh shit, well, they're completely innocent in this, and they're just fans enjoying what they enjoy, and they're
Mhm.
completely. I mean, you still are getting dressed up, and you still are like you've told me about like those Korean girls that are like, oh, I just like guys that are Asian. I just they're just like into Asian
Yeah.
guys,
I
and if
definitely have friends that will only exclusively date Asians, and they're of mixed race, so it's like Mexican girls or white girls or any other
no,
culture that be like, I
and that's
date
not
Asian.
wrong, but that
Like,
fetishization is kind of scary to me because not because of kind of personal experience, but I'm trying to not make it personal, Like I've had that before. I told you before about the story how I had a friend who was dating this girl and she had no interest. Like when I met my friend, this was my best friend, and he ended up marrying this girl. And I remember when I met her, and like I was like, "Hey, nice to meet you. How are you doing?" And she was kind of like, "Oh, David's weird," and that's fine. You don't like me because I'm weird. Okay, no problem. I can take that. She was like, "Dave, I don't like your friend. Your friend David's weird." And then like him and my friendships suffered because of that. But then like later down the line, like a year or a year and a half later, one of her friends was a super K-pop person, got her into K-pop, and then like the next time I met, she was like, "Oh my God, David, my friend is so in love with you." And I was like, what? And she's like, "Oh yeah, because she saw a picture of you at my wedding." And she was like,
right.
who's this Asian guy? Oh my God, he's so hot. Like, so she wants to meet you so bad. And I was like, that's
Um,
like, what do you say to that? I
and
have
the
no
guy you
clue.
didn't
Like,
get last year was weird,
yeah,
right?
I mean, like, I'm not the kind of like my personality is different. I could see maybe some people are like, oh, well, yeah, sure, is she hot? Yeah, introduce her to me, but like, not me. I'm like, as soon as I heard that, I was like, I don't think I ever want to meet this person, And it's not their. I don't think it's their fault. I don't think these girls are bad people. These K-pop fans are bad people, but
Mhm.
it definitely is something that reeks of immaturity and like
Right.
you
It's
know
just like a
you,
face value. I like you because of the race you are and what you look like. You're becoming enough that I am attracted to you immediately
No,
based
and
on
then
the other
some
that
of
I
these girls have got to be getting like take advantage of, right? Like there's got to be some guys
definitely
that are out there like
just to get
they
a
worm
white girl
themselves in.
attention
It's
so
like, yeah,
they
I
can
like K-pop. I like K-pop, and then like through that, and they're like, oh my God, this guy likes K-pop. That's great. It doesn't matter that he's like 15 years older than me. Whatever.
Yeah,
Like,
I had a friend that she was into K-pop and she met this dude online that lived in Korea, and about every
wait,
other week she
was
would
he Asian or he's not Asian?
he was Asian,
He
but
was
every other
Asian.
group we were talking about he was Korean. He lived in Korea,
No, no,
and
but
they became like boyfriend and girlfriend or whatever. What is your question?
no, that was my question. Is he Asian or not Asian?
Whatever. He was Korean, and every other week she would come into the group chat like, "Oh my gosh, he just keeps talking about how he wants to come to
Oh
America." And she would talk about how like, "Oh my gosh, he really wants to get married and stuff too." And I've been through a similar
no.
I told you
God, you
about.
could see that train wreck like from a mile
Yeah,
away.
like
Like,
I was like, "Oh, is he? Oh, that's
and
cool."
you can't
And
tell. The thing is, you
like,
can't tell these people no. Like at a
yeah,
certain age, it's not even about guys or girls or K-pop fans or not. Like there's a certain age and people. There's certain people's mentalities where you can see it from a mile away, but you can't tell them because as soon as you tell them no, they're like even more gung ho about it, and they're like, "No, you don't understand. Our love is pure, and this is true love." And you're like, "Oh God!" Like I've had friends like that, and I'm just like, I just like, okay, well, I'm just gonna sit here, and when this shit all burns to the ground, like I'll be ready to pick up their call when they call me.
yeah. You know what also sucks? Because like I've met girls that like Korean boys, or they'll meet a Korean dude and they'll be super friendly to him, and then as soon as like maybe she'll try to insinuate they should get together or that she's flirting, and the dude will be like, "Oh, like I only want a Korean girl, or I only want an Asian girl at least," and then they get super offended, and it's like that's not a bad thing, man.
No, I
They,
mean, here's the thing: it's not a bad thing from an Asian perspective because it's kind of it's somewhat like semi-racist, right? Like me growing up my entire life and having my mom say, David, only Chinese, no Korean, no black, no Japanese, no white, only Chinese. Like that's kind of messed up,
That's
but
what you
that's
grew up
kind
on.
of like what the
Yeah.
culture like is. Like I was always open to dating other people, but eventually it dawned on me that like if I dated someone outside of my race, there was going to be huge cultural barriers that would
Exactly. There's
make the relationship so much difficult. Like her
yeah.
coming over and not understanding why my parents are screaming at each
Why
other at
you're
the dinner table.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
like even me explaining it, like my brother's dating a white girl right now or a Mexican girl, and she comes over and she's like completely lost. She's like, dude, what the fuck is up with this family? Like, why are they screaming at each other? Why am I getting yelled at for like not taking my shoes off when I came over, or or not saying hi to my parents? It's something I wouldn't want to put somebody through.
Exactly. Even my friends that are in like multicultural relationships with Koreans, like the girl that I talked to, she did get married to that
No,
guy.
it's not easy.
And I have another friend that has like babies with a Korean dude, and every other month she's like, dude, my stepmom, she's a real bitch. Like she's trying to make me Korean, and it's not working
No,
because
I
I'm
mean you
white.
said that to
And
me,
it's
right?
like,
You've said to me, and you've
yeah,
gone through it before, like how when we were first friends and we were just starting to hang out, you felt like you were always disappointing me. You felt this huge weight of
yes,
disappointment, like, oh my god, I'm
yeah,
always disappointing David. I don't even think I want to be friends with him because I just keep disappointing him. It's never enough. It's never enough. And then like now,
right,
like we reconnect like years later after you've like lived in China and been around Asians, like and worked at H Mart, and you're like, oh
yeah.
my god, David, it's like a
Get
culture.
it
It's
now.
just like even a cultural thing where
I
like
came
somebody
back to
from
you and I was immediately like, I get it, please.
I get it, yeah, like after being around it, I know what the immense pressure is to be under like this Asian cultural boulder rock.
Right.
It's like
I get it, David.
it's not
I'll
even
buy the
you
food.
personally treating me this
Don't.
way. It's like just how the culture is. It just literally either it puts you between two hard things and squishes you, and either you survive or you get crushed by it and you never come
Yeah.
back.
And then going back to girls that get insulted by them just wanting white girl or like by the dudes that just want to date within their race.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, maybe it's a racist thing. Maybe it is a racist thing for Koreans to be so like um pressured into wanting to date within the race. But then again, it's like, well, come on, white girls, are you just trying to culturally appropriate him
Well, no,
by
it's
trying
it's
to
it's
make
really
you
funny
you?
because I'm guilty of this, and I want to say this. I'm guilty of this. When I got into Japanese, this is why I'm kind of understanding with these girls who go to these K-pop culture things, but just for go to these Korean culture things just for K-pop. Like there was a booth where they were wearing the hanbok, right? It was like,
Yes.
oh, try on a hanbok, try wearing traditional Korean clothes, right?
Hmm.
Like I don't think I doubt any of those K-pop fans went and tried that out, right? Because they
No.
don't care about that shit. They just care about
Right.
the next Blackpink song coming out and them being able
Yeah.
to dance with it. And that's what's
Right.
upsetting
And
is
seeing
I don't
other
mind.
Blackpink stands and
You know
yeah.
that these all these people all these like online people are like, hey, my Chinese dress is not your prom. My cultural heritage is not your prom dress. I think that's a stupid argument. I hate people who are like bring that
Hmm.
up and argue about it. But I also do see like if anything like look if you want to get into K-pop that's fine. But like also get into the other stuff. K-pop
The
is not
culture.
just
Yeah. Like
Korea is not just tteokbokki and bulgogi and Korean barbecue
right.
and then like
That's it.
yeah I
'Cause
mean, it's up to each individual to learn it and I'm guilty of this is why I bring this up because I'm not saying this because I'm better than these people. I'm saying this because I did the exact same thing and I look back on it now and I'm like oh god like please let other people don't be like what I did because I was in Korean class in college and then there was a Japanese girl in my class named Ellie and
Mhm.
we were taking Korean classes and I took the language because I liked K-pop and I wanted to learn it and then I remember she was like we were just hanging out and I was just it's so cringy but I'm gonna tell you guys I was like oh Ellie man it's so cool that you're Japanese dude that's so great and she was like why is it
Oh, yeah.
great what the fuck like why is it great that I'm Japanese I was like yeah Japanese people are so cool it's so great like there's anime and da 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 and she was like dude David like that's really fucked up don't say that. And I was like, what? I didn't understand it. I didn't understand why it was wrong for me to say that, you know? But
Mhm.
it's just a really stupid and ignorant thing to say.
Yeah.
Be like, oh, that's great, you know?
I wish I was
Yeah, I
Japanese.
didn't know.
Or like,
I probably did say that. I probably said like, oh, I wish I was
yeah.
Japanese. I
I
probably did
saw a
that.
tweet about that recently. It was like, I hate people that say they want to be Korean because you guys don't understand what
Oh,
kind
I
of
saw that tweet.
capitalist hellhole it is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the pressure and the pressure and the societal things and all this other
Right.
stuff that goes along with it. But I mean, wouldn't want to say I hate it. Like I wouldn't say I hate Chinese. It's just being Chinese. It's just something different, you know. And I understand, man.
Very
At that
different.
age in your life, you're trying to find something that you identify with. These people have, and I love it. I love the fact that they've found something that they identify with, and and I love that they've found something that's Asian that they feel like because it's so it's the same thing like in the '90s when all these white kids started getting into gangster rap and they just found something that spoke to them, and that's as foreign and as like weird as people want to make it out to be. That's not a bad thing. The problem is from the problem I have is when I go and it's like they're playing a song and every single girl in the crowd, all the foreign girls are all like they know all the lyrics to all the songs and they're singing it so passionately. I'm like, great, but like don't let that be all you care about, you know? Like
Yeah.
just learn something. I would love it. I would love for them to like, oh, David, I also like traditional Korean whatever. Like, let me tell you about this. And I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
cool. Tell me more about this. Show me that you put the research in. I would love it. I'd absolutely love it. But like my
Yeah.
fear is,
One thing that,
my fear is that like numbers wise, percentage wise, they probably don't give a fuck about any of that stuff at all.
right. One thing that I can say from experience is like with the cultural appropriation, that's just what I'm gonna call it. Like my dress is not my traditional wear is not your prom dress or whatever.
Oh,
The thing and the double standard about that is when I was in China or when I was working for Koreans,
right,
I was expected to adapt to their culture.
right.
So like when my Korean boss yelled at me, he expected me to put my head down and listen and deal with it and apologize and use respectful language because we had a lot of like Hispanic dudes that worked there and we had a lot of white well, we had one other white lady that worked there. But one time I remember my boss was like super mad because we were doing inventory and the Hispanic dudes, they only understood like little Korean phrases. They could say it just because it got them easier through the workday.
Right.
And one day my boss was like screaming at this one dude and the dude accidentally said arasa instead of
And
알겠습니다.
also
And
it's
my
like okay,
manager
okay, right.
freaking flipped on him. Yeah. Arasa is like, okay, I get it. Or it's
Yeah,
like the rude way of saying it
yeah.
and he didn't say 알겠습니다, which is like I understand, sir. And my boss just started screaming at this Hispanic dude that he didn't use the correct respectful Korean.
Oh
And he
man.
would do it to me. And when I was in China too, like, they would tell me like, "Hey, it's I don't remember what the festival was, but we had to go to the graveyards and we had to like stand at my ex-husband's grandfather's grave and they all went up and then they bowed and then they put their head on the grave 3 times and then they said a prayer and
Yeah.
then they got up and they were like they all went through it and I was like well what do I do because I'm like I don't this isn't my thing I don't know but they were like no Krista you're family you're Chinese go and I'm like I'm not Chinese but I'll do it and I did it because like what's worse doing something Chinese or doing something Korean, learning about it and being able to adapt easier to the culture and the people, or sitting there like an idiot, like, I don't want to culturally appropriate. So I'm not going to do that. And then they'd just be mad at me anyway, because they'd be like, I don't understand that American crap that you just said. Get down and put your head on the gravestone, you fat white idiot. Like, come on. What the hell?
All
Anyway,
right, this went in a really weird situation. We went talking about culture and
sorry.
stuff to you like belittling yourself. What are you like?
That's what I was, man. I stuck out like a sore thumb, dude. I wasn't
Yeah, I
in
mean,
being like,
you. We could probably talk about this sometime on a different like
right.
recording, but
Yeah,
you
it's
could
a
talk
different
about
conversation.
just like the shit you went through because because you think like Asians are like a super accepting race like Americans. Like, oh yeah, welcome to the family. It's not super accepting, man.
Mm-mm. They're
You're
pretty
always gonna be
xenophobic.
white, and they're always gonna point you out be white, and you could be in the family for like 20 years, and they'll still be like, oh yeah, the white family member is here.
And they're very cool with that. Like in China, in Korea, Japan, it's very cool for when you just get up and you go see your friend and they like, dude, you look like crap. You look like a fat piece of crap that didn't sleep very well and you've gained weight and your
I
double chin is
dude,
just flat
that
everywhere.
super
And like,
super self-conscious, man. Like all my aunts,
yeah,
oh, every time they see me, if I gain weight, they're like, "Oh, you Nipang Nipang It's like, "You got fatter, huh?" And I was like,
yeah,
"Yeah, I'm a little bit sensitive about it, but yeah, thanks. Yeah, okay, thank
right.
you."
In America, dude, that ain't gonna fly. If you just got walked up to a Walmart and this old dude was like, dude, you look like crap. You didn't look like you didn't sleep well. Oh my gosh, look at those bags under your eyes. Then you'd be like, excuse me, go away. But in China and Korea, people just do that shit to you. If you're a friend or if you're even a stranger. I had strangers come up to me in China and be like, wow, your nose is big. I'd be like,
It's so fucked up, but like it's totally
yeah,
like you're not gonna stop them.
我的鼻子太大了.
They're like,
Oh,
yeah.
美国鼻子，咔咔咔. I'd be like, oh my God, please.
So your fat white American nose. Wow.
Yeah. Anyway, K-pop.
Yeah, K-pop Korean
If you want
festival.
to get into the culture, you got to understand the little
Well,
subtleties too.
I don't want to be. It's hard because I don't want to. I don't want to. I don't want to criticize these people, I guess, but I do. Like like just going there and watching it is like was a very scary. It's not scary, just uncomfortable feeling yesterday. You know what I mean? Because it's one thing if you're like going to KCON or you're going to like a concert. It's like, oh yeah, but this was Korean festival. Like I think it was Culture and Heritage Festival. You know what I mean? And K-pop is like just something that has
Within the
developed.
past 20 years.
Yeah, in the last 20, 25 years. And it's taken over the world and like it's great. But arguably, my biggest problem with K-pop now is that it's not. I feel like it's less Korean and more American. Like if anything,
Yes.
people love K-pop now because it's more Western. Like K-pop now is
Yeah.
more Western than it's ever been.
Hmm.
Because what are they doing?
And it's very industrialized.
Yes, and they're hiring all these like American producers to come over and work with the K-pop artists. Like
Hmm.
Psy's performing with like Snoop Dogg and who was in. Who did they say? Nicki Minaj was in some song. You said.
Nicki Minaj was in a BTS song,
Yeah,
Idol,
but that's the point.
which is weird.
Which
It's
is
weird because people like that stuff, but if you go to YouTube and you look at the original Idol without the Nicki Minaj featuring,
yeah.
it has like almost 20 times as many views as the one with Nicki Minaj. And it's crazy because they really celebrate when Westerners get involved in their music, but then they don't even watch it. They're like, oh,
No, because
I don't like
that's all an appearance, dude. Like
yeah,
Asians are great about making the appearance and oh, thank you so much, but thank you, but we like our thing just the way it is, But they'll talk about it like it's the greatest thing in the world. But my point about K-pop is like, you understand, Korea is like a tiny little country, right? When I was into K-pop, like I think like selling 10,000 copies of a CD was like an accomplishment. It was like, oh, the new Finkel CD sold 10,000 copies. Looks like they're probably gonna put out the next one, So like Korea, like money wise, they've completely bought on board the K-pop movement. Whatever they can do to sell more albums or sell more songs or get more fans. This is why K-pop like so focus on like Japan so much, because Japan is the second largest music market in the world behind America, right?
mhm,
So if they can sell their music to Japanese people, they Koreans hate Japanese, right? They freaking hate Japanese, but
right.
apparently they have no problem
Milk
selling
Toast,
them their
man.
music, you know? And like, so if they can make money selling that stuff, exporting it to other countries, that's a fantastic opportunity.
Right.
100 times the sales that they could do in their own country because there's just not that many people. But like,
But now America's getting into it. So like there are much less, even like very few Japanese covers of Korean songs. Because it used to be like a double album every time you got a new K-pop album out. It was like, oh, you get the Korean version, and then here's the entire Japanese album, like translated, reperformed, re-danced to.
you're saying
They
that
all have
doesn't
their own
happen as much
individual
now?
videos. Not nearly as much. Not what I've seen. I think
Yeah.
Daesung from Big Bang still does it every once in a while, but like BTS, they have some Japanese covers, I'm sure,
Yeah.
but it's not nearly as common as them
Well,
trying
last
to
time I was
push
in
towards
Japan,
like
Twice was releasing their Japanese album, so it was all Japanese songs.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they don't do it with everybody. Anyways, I think I realized maybe why I'm not into K-pop as much anymore, because it's just the whole like I feel like it's less Korean and more, just mainstream music. It's
Money based.
because
Yeah.
here's the thing about idols. Okay, when I listen to idol music, in Japanese idol music, you're not getting that anywhere else. You're not
Right.
like that is like try any other country try to replicate that music. Like it's not people. I guess people aren't interested in that kind of stuff. They're not interested in the sugary sweet stuff. But like I feel there was a time in my like when I saw Hyuna's bubble pop. The
Hmm.
first time I saw that, and I saw them in the jerseys and the colorful and the choreography and just the look, the feel, like her like pushing guys in the pool and stuff. And I was like, I remember exactly the thought I had in my mind. I'm like, oh my god, like K-pop is doing American pop better
Yep.
than American pop, right?
Yeah.
And that was cool to see, kind of. But it's also like, why do I want more American pop? Just in a different language or with like Koreans or why?
Yeah.
Like that arguably I like K-pop because it's more colorful and it's fun. That's why I like it better. But yeah, I mean, I'm just like, why do I want more pop? The same type of pop music, like the old K-pop I listened to was like, dude, it's like it had a very like Asian flavor to it, like a very,
Mhm.
like there were songs they were singing about kimbap, and they were singing about their mom and stuff.
Yeah.
It's like where are those songs now? Like, do they even exist anymore? It just seems like every like I saw that article that was talking about Twice winning some this it's the weekly TRL weekly countdown show, and Twice won it. And then I looked through the artists and I was like, dude, look at all these artists. Like every single artist seems like they all have the same look. It's like we're
Yeah.
super cool, we're super fashionable. Somebody's gonna have short shorts, somebody's gonna have a midriff showing,
Hmm.
and they're gonna be
And one of the reasons BTS got so popular was because they weren't from any of the big idol producing people. Like they weren't JYP, YG, or SM.
right.
They were their own company, Big Hit,
Huh.
and they also produced most of their own songs, which was great. And then they also had songs about what bullying was like in Korean schools.
Hmm.
So there was a Korean culture vibe to it. But I don't know if it's shifted since then, but that was the reason they became popular because they were their own thing. They did have culture Korean influence and they were talking about stuff that's normally like
Hmm.
shamed upon. Like they don't care that the kids feel bad that school is bad because like screw you, go to school. But,
They said that.
huh?
They said that.
No, Korean culture, man, is
Oh,
like
Korean
you don't
culture says that.
hear
Okay.
about, yeah, Korean culture, they don't care that their school, makes kids
No, I
feel like
mean,
crap. They were
I
like, dude,
I
that's
can
the part.
imagine Korean bullying being pretty bad because
Terrible,
Japanese
yeah.
bullying's pretty bad in school. Like people think it's bad here in America. Like, dude, it,
Like, don't you have the backpack kid? Or what is the backpack kid? What is that?
do I have the
It's like
backpack?
some in Japanese or Korean culture, there's something they call like the backpack kid, where if you're the backpack kid, you have to either carry everybody's book bags or you have to do something like that. It's just kind of some hazing technique, and it's usually to the maknae or the youngest in the group, or I don't know. Because of that seniority culture, like the maknae is the youngest, the oppa and the hyungs and all that. Like young people get crapped on all the time because they feel like the older people are like, dude, screw you. It happened to me when I was a kid. It's just this
No,
unending
it's
cycle of,
it's it's funny because I was just talking to one of my friends who lives in Japan. He's a white guy, but he's living in Japan, and he was telling me about how they've basically like what's it called, institutionalized, systematically. So basically, like when you go to work at a Japanese company, like there'll be a boss,
Mhm.
right? And then the boss takes care of his younger like employees, or or younger kohais, or whatever it's called. Maybe not the boss, but like an elder, right? And so the
Mhm.
boss, what he'll do is he'll take the younger people out to like some like prostitute bar where they can have sex with somebody, and that's like part of like the 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 work culture. It's part of like, it's like, oh, I'm taking care of my younger members here, and then they
My
take
little
some.
ducklings.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
takes them out, and it's in like, and so the younger people are like, they have girlfriends too, but they're like, they don't want to like They're like, well, I'm supposed to do this
Respect the
because,
boss.
my
Yeah.
boss is bringing me out and I can't say no. So, okay. And then like and then, the girlfriend's like, yeah, well, I mean, it's part of his job and he needs to make money. So, I mean, I guess
Yeah, that sucks.
I guess I'll be okay with this.
I guess I'll have to listen. All
Yeah,
right.
and then what happens is when they grow up and they rise in the company, they become the old elders, right? And the new people come in and they do the same thing to the. So there's this constant
Yeah,
like cycle
the
of like
never-ending cycle.
making that cheating okay, and the girlfriends like are okay with it because they kind of have to
Yeah,
be okay with it, or because like they don't
right.
even see it's even to a point where they don't see it as wrong anymore because they're like, well, it's the same thing. I'm telling you, people, Americans, like, there's gonna be Americans listening to me talk about this and be like, dude, that is so fucked up. I will never be okay with that. But I'm telling
Right.
you right now, there's shit that happens in America that Americans do on a daily basis, and it is appalling to people from other countries. But we're
Hmm.
totally fine with it every day. We're just like, oh, well, whatever. I mean, that's what Americans do. That's just we're Americans. Ah, yeah,
Yeah.
So yeah, so
Yep.
I mean, and
They'd
so
be like, I can't believe they do that. That's sexism. That's racism. That's belittling. That's like, okay, sure it is. Yeah,
yeah.
go tell that to the Japanese boss. He'll be like, who are you? I'm gonna go have sex with some prostitutes with
Uh,
my little ducklings. You can go away if you want.
Ducklings. Why are you making it weird, dude? Ducklings.
Duckling. That's what it feels like to me. Is like the big duck is like herding his little ducklings around to go have
Oh,
sex with
hurting.
prostitutes.
I thought you said hurting. Anyways.
Anyways,
We'll wrap it up. We're talking about what's the last thing we're going to talk about as far as K-pop, Korean festival.
Korean festival.
Yeah.
I don't know. All I remember about Korean festival when I worked at H Mart
Oh yeah, dude.
was there
Well, I'm
was
gonna.
no K-pop there.
Well, yeah, there wasn't.
No, there was no K-pop
Great, great,
because
great, great.
me
This
and
is a
my
perfect
boss
way.
did
This is a
dance
perfect way
around.
to end it because
Yeah.
there was no because you worked at H Mart. You were friends. You were in the Houston Korean community, right?
Hmm.
And you said you went to Korean festival. This was probably about like 2015 or something, 14.
2014 probably, yeah.
And
So
then
K-pop hadn't Psy Gangnam Style had already happened, but K-pop was still on the up and up. Like BTS hadn't really gotten to its full extent yet,
well,
but they
BTS
were
didn't even.
around.
Yeah. Okay.
But when I did Korea Festival, we did our own at the store while the bigger one was going on in Houston.
Uh huh.
And I don't know what was happening there, but at the store there was no K-pop. We did have like a little segment where me and my boss danced to Urudong Growl by EXO, and like we did some stupid
Dude,
stuff,
oh my god, I
but it
wish I
was
would have
mostly
gotten
just
video. I wish I got a video. It's so funny that we talked about that yesterday because that's the
yeah.
first song that they played. Well, that's the when I happened upon that huge mass of people, that's what they played.
Hmm.
And it was like, "Ooh, da da da. Oh," and everybody in the crowd was like, "Oh," and I was like, "Oh god, dude.
Yeah.
I'm
And you could
embarrassed
just
for
imagine
you."
me and like this 50-year-old Korean dude and this little pudgy white lady just dancing really terribly. That was what happened to us, except there was no girls in the crowd. It was like maybe, a few handfuls of elder Korean people, and they had the Korean drums there, and
This
they
was in
had
the
this
store. This was in the H Mart.
in the store.
Okay,
Yeah,
this
we had
wasn't
a
on the
stage
stage. I
outside
thought
on the parking lot.
that is
Yeah,
fucking
and they
funny.
had chairs and stuff. Yeah, and they had the drummers and they had like this Korean dance thing with like a bunch of elders that were all in hanboks and traditional Korean clothing. I don't know what they did. They just like walked in a circle and did some dance stuff.
And
But no K-pop, no K-pop at all. And there was maybe like one non-Korean in the audience, and he was like, "Whoa, this is cool!" And I think he was just there for the experience. It wasn't for the K-pop at all. And inside the store, this is the most interesting thing to me. That inside the store, they had a
oh, you mean the
rice cake making dude,
yeah.
the dude with a big hammer that just like
Yeah.
swings it down and like beats up the rice, and he just
And he
kept
goes,
doing
"Ay,
that for
ay," and then
hours
like
all day.
he like slaps the rice's
Hmm.
like it's like some newborn baby's
Yeah,
backside. He's like, "Hey," and he just
right.
slaps it.
And it was cool watching because it was the dude with the hammer and like two other dudes, and it was fun watching him and them get into like a cycle of it because they just fucking go nonstop, and I'd get so scared of their hands, but they were just
Yeah.
plowing at the rice, and that was cool to me. I was like, I don't care about the K-pop. This is dope. This is rice cakes, man. They're gonna make tteokbokki with this stuff. There you go. So that's how it seems so different from me, from when you talk about Korean Fest and what you just experienced. And then I think of my own little one where it was just elderly Korean people walking around and there were not very many foreigners. I say foreigners, but I mean white people. To Koreans, we are all foreigners. So there were no white people around or like anybody of a different culture. It was just Koreans doing what they felt was Korean culture and heritage.
Yeah.
But there was no K-pop influence in it other than, being silly.
Man,
Like it was
dude,
just a flavor
I
text.
really wish I really wish they would have had a rice guy there. That would have been cool to see.
Yeah, that would have, oh my gosh, it
I'm
was
sure they
so cool.
probably had it at some point, but just maybe during the hours that I wasn't there. But I mean,
Yeah,
it was like nonstop, dude. There, it was like
they might have
e-
had him for H Mart.
everything I was there yesterday. There was literally K-pop playing, like everything. Yeah, which is.
Yep. That's what they get you in the door with, and they just kind of hope you pay attention to the drum
But
people.
but but the thing is, that's the thing though. My argument is that I don't think that's how it works though. Like I don't
No?
think that's a good conversion rate. You know? It's like the people who it's like if you were like running a restaurant promotion, it's like, hey, everybody who comes today will get a free egg roll. Like you're just gonna have a bunch of people coming to get free egg rolls, right?
Hmm.
Okay, I'm bringing this up because I work at a Chinese restaurant. I'm not trying to be weird or racist or yeah, but I'm saying like if I offered like free egg rolls tomorrow, you just have tons of people coming and getting free egg rolls. Like
Hmm.
the point is to get people like, oh, okay, I'll come for the free egg roll, but you know what? I'll also buy something and I'll try out the food or I'll experience what you have to offer. But I don't
Hmm.
think that's how people think. I don't think that's how people work. And I feel like if Korean culture wants to sell out and like, oh, we'll push the K-pop thing hard and hopefully people will stick around and spend money on other things. I don't think that's what happens. Well, I mean, it may happen at Korean Fest because they have all this food they could buy and people are going to be hungry when they're dancing around it.
Right.
But I don't think that's a good business model because I don't think getting them in with the free egg roll leads to that much attachment to other stuff.
Also leading back to the capitalist hellhole Twitter, it's like, why not sell out, dude? That's making them money. Just
No, I
go
mean
ahead.
no, I mean
Use
that's
all the
that's
K-pop ever.
well, that's the point. That's the point I was trying to make earlier. Is that yeah, they're selling way more albums. There's people in Korea lining their pockets way more than they ever could have 20 years ago. Especially now that it's a worldwide phenomenon. And people, it's funny that people argue like about like idols being like female idols being this like sellout thing and money hungry corporation. Like,
Right. And they're
dude,
subjugated to so much.
yeah, but I'm saying like
No, not
when you have
subjugated.
like
They
when Korea is such a tiny little country and you have like three major like companies basically doing most of the music, like I don't know, man. That seems pretty scary to me.
Yeah, it's very monopolized. And do you remember when world tours used to mean Japan, Southeast Asia, and maybe Northern Australia? That was a world tour. But now, God, like BTS did a concert once a year for like 3 years in a row, and that's nuts. They constantly worked for almost 3 years doing world tours and making albums, and that's insane. But like back, maybe not even like 6 years ago, you couldn't do that. They'd have a world tour where it was just like Southeast Asia, Korea, Japan, Australia, maybe, and the Philippines. But they considered that the world because that was where their interest groups were. But now it's freaking everywhere. So they have to meet the demand. So there's more K-pop groups and then there's just more to do all the time for them.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Maybe that's where we'll end it. I have no clue what's gonna happen to this. Thanks, Krista, for showing up.
Yeah, no problem.
Bye.
Thanks for having me. Bye.